Hi, everybody. Hey, this is Ken Renner, a real estate expert here in Santa Rita Ranch in Liberty Hill. And I just wanted to, this is one of our expert interviews, and I wanted to introduce Jeff Schultz from Farmers Agency and here in Santa Rita Ranch. He's been here. He's a long time resident. It was one of the very first to enter the community here, and it's got probably some pretty good stories about what's happened all along. Appreciate him also and his agency joining us at the Santa Rita Business Expo, which is January 27th from 11 to 3 at the Ranch House from 11 to 3 on January 27th. So we're going to talk a little bit about his agency and a little bit about the economy having to deal with insurance right now, as everybody has been looking at their insurance bills and kind of wondering what the effects are of all these hurricanes and the pandemic and all that kind of stuff. And he's got some pretty good wisdom about that, because we always get that. And so, Jeff, thanks for joining us on the expert interview here. And just wanted to thank you for your time and give us some of your insight as to what's going on in the insurance industry.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Thanks for having me. Really,
Yeah.
really appreciate that, and also looking forward to being at the Business Expo there in Santa Rita Ranch. As you mentioned, that's community super close to my heart, and I know we were talking before. Fun fact: we were the 11th family to move into Santa Rita Ranch.
Yeah, cool.
So we've seen it grow from just cow pasture to what it is today, and really excited about that growth and all of the amenities and schools and everything that are popping up.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's been great to watch, and we love being part of the community, and we love the opportunity to give back to the community with our business now.
And your wife Jamie, she was the one of the first teachers at Santa Rita Elementary, right?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, Jamie works with me full time now, and she actually opened the Santa Rita Elementary campus. She was at Rancho before that, but yeah, very first round of teachers to help open that campus, and she was there up until actually last year. This is her first year away from the classroom.
Wow. Well, it's a good place for her to be. Is insurance is definitely a lot of education that needs to be surrounded that. We were just talking before the radio, but the podcast about the fact that a lot of people are underinsured or and don't even know it, and also that what happened to the rates that recently. And I think it's time, just as we do in real estate, to review every year your equity, the values of your property, and what the current, for tax reasons and other reasons, to just really kind of know where you're at for your net worth. And same thing with insurance. Insurance is one of our, other than taxes, one of our biggest expenses on our properties. And so we've been getting a lot of, well, my wife just told me our bill for this house was over $2,000 for the year. And that was, I think, up 20 or 30%. And then we also do a lot of investment properties. And so, we've seen that go from, on our new construction, from under 500 a year to like to 750. That's like 20% up, even though that's still reasonable for what's covered. But yeah, tell us what happened and what you think is going to happen moving forward in the insurance realm.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ken. So first of all, it sounds like I need to take a look at your policies for you,
Mhm.
see what we can do to help. And before I get into kind of my personal opinion on the industry and where it's going, I think it's important to touch on what you just said, right? So you review with your clients every year. You look at equity and values. That's important to us as well. So one of the things that we use here at Schultze Agency, we call it an FFR. It's a farmers friendly review. So every year, before your renewals come up, 2 to 3 months before your renewal takes place, we review that policy internally. We pull it up, we look at every single piece of it. Then we get you either on the phone or here in person, whatever is best for you. And we talk about, are your coverages still applicable? What's the reconstruction cost? What our estimators are showing versus what really is there. So we make sure that those numbers are right sized, and we make sure that, did you buy any, expensive jewelry we need to make sure is covered, or did you, sell anything or downsize? So we like to be proactive about
Mhm.
that annual review process, and we meet with every single customer every single year.
Nice.
And do that review. So very similar to what you're discussing. I think that kind of helps avoid some of the sticker shock and surprises like you just described, right? With the big 30% jump in your coverage or in premium.
I know it's
So
not your fault. I know it's not your fault.
right. Well, for sure. And sometimes there's things you can do to mitigate those increases. You can adjust coverages. You can adjust deductibles. There's lots of different things you can do. And if nothing else, you can at least understand what the market's doing, and we can have that conversation at that time. So, our goal is to make sure that you're not financially burdened and that you have the right coverage. You don't have too much coverage and not too little coverage. So that's what we try to accomplish,
Right.
both in the initial meeting when we first bring you on as a customer, and then going forward every year. So that's important to us. So going back to I guess moving on with the second part of your comment or
Mhm.
question, I don't have a crystal ball, of course. I wish I did. So everything I'm about to say is my personal opinion,
Yeah, that's
right?
fine.
And is not necessarily, the opinion of farmers, but it is my personal opinion in Schultze Agency. So insurance rates have just been skyrocketing across the board, right?
Right.
Auto rates, homeowners,
Yeah.
everything's just been going up like crazy. And I personally believe that this hyperinflation that we experienced during the pandemic is a big driver for that. And I feel like a lot of insurance carriers did not react quickly enough to that inflation, right? So when we think about a home, we need to think about not just market value, right? Because we don't insure the house based on market value. We insure the house based on what's called reconstruction cost. So
Mm.
that's, as you know, in your profession, you'll be familiar with this, right? So it's what would it take to rebuild that house if it was just wiped out completely, right? You don't have to rebuild the land, right? So you don't
Right.
have to factor in the cost of the lot. Um,
But you got the
what you do
foundation that may need to be jackhammered up if it falls
Right, may or may
down.
not, right? What you do have to think about is material costs, which fluctuate day to day,
Yeah.
labor costs, right? So, what would it take to rebuild that house? Most of the time, and we hope that our reconstruction cost will be less than our market value, right?
Mhm.
Now, sometimes, and the pandemic is a great example of that, reconstruction costs many times exceeded market value, right? And then you got to make a decision: do you even want to rebuild? However, so what we need to do is we need to make sure that reconstruction cost is correct, right? So,
So what
so that's
happens if you if you didn't have enough coverage? Who pays for the shortage?
the short answer is the homeowner does.
Ah,
Many policies, and this is dependent on your carrier and your policy, and kind of which level of policy you've selected. Uh, Here at Schultz Agency, we primarily sell farmers. We are appointed with many other great carriers as well, but farmers is our primary bread and butter. That's where we like to put everybody because they got the best products. We do have some kind of cushion built into those. You'll have a 10 or a 20% kind of cost overage cushion built into those policies, depending on what we choose and how we set it up. But anything above that, that's going to come out of the homeowner's pocket. So
is there
that
a is
could
there a
add up
rider
quickly.
that you can get to cover that? Like they have gap insurance and auto and stuff like that?
So yeah, you can always customize your policy. The goal is to get it right sized from the beginning, though. So if we have the right reconstruction cost and we have this 10 or 20% cushion built in to our policies, in a normal economy, you're typically not going to see a 20 or 30% increase in 1 year, right? So again, hyperinflation, different story, right? Kind of goes back to the comment where a lot of insurance companies got in trouble because they were insuring houses at a certain level. Hyperinflation kicked in; those reconstruction costs, possibly doubled, but they were still insuring, $5 million houses as if they were
Right.
$500,000 houses, and then
Right.
having to pay out claims with hurricanes and wildfires and disasters, etc. So that has then caused a massive rate hike with all insurance carriers across the board in all
Yeah, and some
states.
of them are pulling out of Texas, and we were talking California too. A lot of pulling out of California. I'm sure a bunch of them already left Florida.
Yep, absolutely. A lot of Florida recently. That's kind of been the big news in the past few months, because the carriers just get in a position where they can't raise their rates high enough to cover their losses, so they just choose to pull out of the market completely.
Well,
Um,
that's nobody wants to hear that, but it is reality. And so, we do work with clients that have properties all over the nation. And that was one of the big complaint for us here is property taxes, and then the one about Florida was the insurance has gone through the roof and really makes a
mhm.
difference because our investments based on cash flow, and the insurance and the taxes are a big, are a big, factor in that. And so, but one of the things that we forget to, because everybody looks for the cheaper dollar, the cheaper policy, but wait a minute, what about like especially liability? And like for us, we got the max on every one of our properties of 500,000. I'd like to be able to get more because it wasn't very expensive to go from 300 to 500, like I think $15 a
Right.
year or something like that.
Mhm.
So I encourage all of our clients to get their premium, their general liability, the first layer of protection against lawsuits is get that $500 policy, $500,000 policy. Is there any higher limits than that, or is that pretty much the
So
general?
depends on the policy, right? So you're talking about a landlord policy right now,
Yeah.
right? And it's carrier specific as well.
Oh,
So
okay. So they
lots of
can go
options.
higher. You can get $1 million.
Well, let's see there. I would have to look at the different carriers and options. I also want to think about some other products that you can add that could potentially kick in as well. So we could have that conversation
So like an
offline and dig
umbrella,
through them.
umbrella policy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can do
So,
umbrellas, multi-million dollar umbrellas.
and
Um,
we have that too. We're almost at the point where we need to have a commercial policy because I think
mhm.
max we can do is a $3 million umbrella. Because we
Oh,
have a lot of clients that say, I want to put my property in LLC to protect myself and all that kind of stuff. And that has some layer of protection, has some risk to it, as opposed
mhm.
to, I just tell them the first line of defense is get the maximum amount of insurance as you can. Because I tell people if you're going to go with a $300,000, limit policy, you're going to get a $300,000 attorney, as opposed to if you have a $3 million, umbrella
Right.
policy, you're going to get the insurance company is going to hire a $3 million attorney.
Right. Yeah.
Is
And
that
that's a
right, or is that
great,
just my guess?
yeah, and that's a great point, and it is. And I think one of the things that I learned early on when I decided to move into the insurance space, and I think it applies to attorneys as well. So that's kind of what triggered the thought. So I was told early on that good insurance is not cheap, and cheap insurance is not good. I think the same thing applies to legal representation,
Or
right?
real
Cheap
estate,
lawyers aren't good, and good lawyers aren't cheap.
or
So
brokers, real estate brokers.
absolutely. Absolutely. So it's important, right? Our goal is to make sure that all of our clients are not financially burdened, right? If they
Right.
experience a loss.
Well, Farmers is what, one of the top three, top five in the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Farmers is a great company, great service, great products. Not always the cheapest, and that's okay. It's a relationship based company, and
Mhm.
what I love about Farmers is, like I own my business. Like Schultze Agency is not a franchise of Farmers. Like we represent farmers, right? I'm appointed with Farmers. I'm also appointed with many other great carriers. I like Farmers because of their customer service, right?
Okay,
And the
awesome.
products that they offer. When we compare with the other captives and the other independents, and I like to consider myself kind of a quasi captive, quasi independent agent because I do have the ability to write outside of Farmers,
Mhm.
unlike other captive carriers. But I love the product, right? That's what sold me on Farmers. I could have represented any insurance carrier out there, and I chose Farmers because I did my due diligence. And um,
Well, great.
again, not the cheapest.
We're
but the
glad to
best.
have you here in the, especially in the community as well as being a long timer here. I'm sure you've got some great stories. And then, in January 27th, you join us at the expo, and we hope our residents will come out and shake hands and maybe get a chance to review their policies with you. I can always use quotes I'm working with our investors and things like that to find out, what farmers can do for us. And
Mhm.
great to be, like I said, just have boots on the ground here in Santa Rita Ranch, especially for insurance. So,
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. Well, thanks for that, and looking forward to the expo again. Looking forward to meeting with everybody and meeting with you, and happy to help you and your investors and anybody else that wants to have a consultation. They're free. Happy to do it. And one of the things that we built our agency on is that we would never ask a client to do anything that we would not personally do. So the solution has to make sense, and there are times where we'll say you're better off with what you have, or you're better off somewhere else. So it's really a no risk, no pressure situation, just to sit down and have a conversation and just make sure that you've got the right coverage.
that sounds great. All right. Well, Jeff, I appreciate it. We are farmers. Bum, ba, dum, bum, bum, bum. As they say.
All right, Ken. Well, thanks for your
Marketing
time.
doesn't. All right. We'll see you on January 27th.
All righty.
See you.
Bye.